Hello, my name is Michael Skelton, and this is my podcast, Called to Serve. Well, thank you for joining me again. For those of you who have already been listening, thank you for coming back, and for anybody who is new to my podcast, welcome. I appreciate you listening. I hope you'll give it a good try. And I hope that whether you agree with me or not, I truly do hope that you will give me feedback. Let me know if you agree with me. Let me know if you have other ideas. I want to be able to make that a part of this podcast. I want to be able to take your input and be able to give you feedback as well as you give me feedback. So let's get started. For those of you who did not listen to my last podcast, it was just very briefly, it was about an article I read concerning the comedian Jordan Peele. For those of you who don't know who Jordan Peele is, he is one half of the duo that's called Key and Peele. They're featured on, I think, probably Comedy Central. I'm actually not sure, to be honest with you, what channels and where all they can be found. I know they can be found on YouTube, and that's where I've seen the majority of their stuff that I've viewed. But going back to the article, Jordan Peele was at an event, and not only, to give you a little bit of backstory, but not only is he a comedian, but he also is a producer. And the article quotes him as saying that he will not cast a white guy as the lead role in his future movies. So I don't want to get too much into it because I've already hashed some of that out. And so if you haven't heard it, I encourage you to go back and listen to the podcast that was done before. Anyway, what I want to talk about now is I want to kind of continue on with that. And I want to pose the question as to why do people like Jordan Peele, and it's not just him, it's many, many people. Usually, and I'm generalizing here, usually it's people who are much further to the left end of the political spectrum. And the question I want to pose is, why do they do that? Why is it that we hear almost on a daily basis, it truly is, if not quite literally on a daily basis, it is just about on a daily basis that we hear of someone, either a Hollywood type or a Democrat politician or someone who is left-leaning, a musician. Why is it that we hear that so often, this type of discrimination and racism directed towards non-minorities? Why is that? And not only is it said, but it is applauded by the liberal media. It is applauded. They applaud one another whenever they say that. So why do they do that? What's the reason for it? Well, there's two main reasons that people do this. The first you'll see is indoctrination. There are those who have been raised and been in a culture so long in which that kind of thing is promoted, that kind of stereotyping, racism is promoted to the point of it being okay, that it's just natural to them. That, I believe, does happen, but especially lately, I think that is not the most prevalent reason. The second reason, and what I believe is the most prevalent, is what many have come to term, and I didn't come up with this, I wish I would have, because it's a very good term to describe what's going on here. But it's virtue posing, or some would call it virtue signaling. I like actually the term virtue posing a little bit better because it really describes, because that's all they're doing, they're posing. And I'll explain what I mean. Whenever you hear someone like Jordan Peele go out and say, I'm not going to cast a white guy in my upcoming movies, and then it's usually met by applause or cheering or congratulations, some sort of thing like that. That's actually why they're doing it, because they know that right now in the political climate, in the mainstream political climate, I should say, if I can call it that, they know that they're going to get applauded. They know that they'll get airtime for saying, I don't want to cast white guys in my movie. Up until recently, up until I read that article, I'd never considered Jordan Peele to be racist. And even despite this article, I'll still give him the benefit of the doubt and say I don't know that he necessarily is. It was definitely a racist comment, but I don't know that he necessarily is just outright racist. But I think that he is doing what so many other elites, liberal elites, love to do, and that's virtue pose. And if I didn't say this already, Jordan Peele and his partner, they're black men. So you don't get it just from people of color. You don't get it just from any one race or class of person. It's everybody. There are white people that even do it, that discriminate and make just absurd racist comments towards white people. And it's for that same reason. It's so that they can pose in front of all of their friends and so they can get a pat on the back. There's so many politicians that do it. Almost all Democratic politicians do. There may be a few that don't, and there's even Republicans that do. And it also, not only is it the virtue posing, but it is almost like my get out of racism free card that some would probably consider it. They won't ever admit that, but if they can pile on the bandwagon of discriminating against non-minorities, being racist against non-minorities and lifting minorities up, if they can do that, then they feel like they kind of get a pass for their own whiteness. I don't know if they feel guilty, or just in case they accidentally slip up in the future, they can try to point back to whenever they were virtue posing, whenever they were virtuous, so to speak. If you could see me, I'm doing air quotes whenever I say virtuous. So this is where we are today. It's okay, not only okay, but it's cool and fashionable to make racist, discriminating comments and take racist and discriminating actions against non-minorities, while being taboo to do the same towards anyone who is in what would be considered a minority category. And let me just go ahead and say, it is good that it is taboo to discriminate or be racist against anyone in a minority category. But let me just go ahead and take it to the next step. It should be taboo to discriminate or be racist towards anyone in any category. Matter of fact, let's say it should be taboo to act that way towards anyone, period. We should not discriminate, be mean towards somebody because of their color, no matter what it is, their race, their religion, creed, no matter what. But, as I just said, it is okay and even fashionable to be discriminatory and racist towards white people. Let me also take just a second to go ahead and put it out there that I do know that there is still racism out there against minorities, but whenever I make the statement that nowadays it is taboo, what I'm talking about is, again, a generalization. You don't see that in the public, in the mainstream, or most anywhere else. The only places you ever see that anymore is isolated incidents. And I challenge anybody to say otherwise and have proof of it. And proof of that does not mean the stories that you see every once in a while of some crazy hillbilly being racist towards a Hispanic person or a person of color or whatever. That, I'm afraid, is not proof of that. There is, however, ample proof of what I have just said, the statement that I've made about there being widespread discrimination and racism towards Caucasians. That, again, is almost on a daily basis, and furthermore, it's cheered. When you see those news reports of somebody who is being discriminated against, treated ugly by a white person towards a minority, it is never cheered, and nor should it be. But whenever it's the other way around, the pundits, the commentators, the newscasters, they lift it up. They applaud that as if it is something that should be done more often. So let me go ahead and try to wrap this up. What I'm trying to say in this podcast, in this episode, is that racism of any sort is bad for everyone. Even if you truly do think that, say, you're a person of color, and you think, well, this is benefiting me, and I'm fine with that. Even if you would admit to me, you know what? Yeah, I'm fine with that. It's about time. For one, that's completely wrong attitude. But number two, even if you truly do believe that, it would only last for so long. It is not good for society as a whole. It's only a matter of time before a society like that goes downhill. You want proof? Look in the history books. Just look at the Civil War. You had one group being racist, discriminatory, and even worse, that's not even putting it anywhere close to how bad it was whenever we're talking about slavery. And it ripped a country apart. Now, I'm not saying we're headed for some sort of a civil war anytime soon, not in that respect, but in a manner of speaking, and in some ways we are. Look at how divided we're becoming, and it's because of this kind of stuff. Look at how divided our country is. So for those of you out there who are listening to me right now, no matter your color, no matter your race, no matter your religion, no matter your gender, if you're an American, we need to stop approving of people to deal in racism. Well, that's all I have for now. What are your thoughts? Drop me an email at michael@calledtoserve.us. I'm also on Twitter and Facebook under Call to Serve as well. So let me know what you think. Do you agree with what I'm saying? Do you disagree? If you'll send those things in to me, I'll try to get to those to where we can talk about them in future episodes. But until then, I want to say thank you once again. I appreciate you listening to me. Have a great day.